Friends, I want to begin with a question today. Who has loved you when you were just struggling to love yourself and get through a very challenging time? I go very quickly to the summer of '86. I was sent to British Columbia. A Southern Ontario boy, the United Church of Canada seemed to know, needed to understand a bit more than this part of the world. And Gitsagukla, Kispiox, Hazelton, British Columbia, my first Indigenous experience. And it is still an unforgettable experience in my journey of life. Part of the story is I was terrified. I didn't know how to preach. My first sermon was risk being human, be you. I can go back to that first sermon like no other sermon I've ever preached. I was shaking in my boots. My supervisor had been gracious to me, given me a few weeks to settle in, and I made new friends. They were medical doctors and nurses. They were planning their profession. They were doing summer internships like I was. And they weren't churchgoers. They were out partying at the bar on Saturday nights. But that Sunday morning, they knew how scared I was, and they all lined the back pew of the church. 40 people probably in Mountain View United. When I was done that sermon, God knows what I said. They all stood up with their Bristol board, and I got some sevens. I did see a 10, and I definitely got a 0. I think that was from Terry. He ended up being a dentist. And we became very dear friends over that summer. They loved me as that congregation in Kispiox and Kitsagukla, those dear Indigenous souls that I came to so deeply love, their humor, their grace, their struggles. I still remember Dr. Rose. Hugh had been a doctor, but also a United Church minister. He guided me through my first funeral. It was a suicide. Those are stories that help make who I am today by their love. That following summer, it was Chatsworth and Desborough Massey. I still didn't know much about what I was doing. And those rural farm people, small town, they loved me when I needed it the most. And I continue to cherish them. And anywhere I've served in ministry, I have felt the same grace and love. Jesus seemed to know something about this grace and love, and I hope you have as well. Because the Pharisees, let's be honest, like I've thrown them under the bus way too often. Amy Lindman Allen, professor at Vanderbilt, she's a Lutheran pastor. She's really helped me to understand that the Pharisees, they were reformers. They were trying their best to make faith practical, like Jesus was. And Jesus is having conflict with them because what Amy helps me understand is like they were saying, imagine this. I'm going to go to the soup kitchen this week or the food bank, and I'm going to tick off the box of virtue. Or are you going to the food bank because you want to deepen a relationship with people and find out who they are as people and human beings? Or like she says as an example, how about the Bible? I'm going to tick off that I read all of the book of James this week. Or are you reading the Bible because you want to become closer to God? You see, what Professor Amy is trying to say is this is about a relationship with God and one another. And I know these are challenging times. Jesus is offering to his religious leaders of his time what Professor Amy calls an ad hoc ethics, guided by the heart. So someone says to me recently, I love my hairdresser, but I have to ask them, are they double vaxxed? They tell me no, they're an anti-vaxxer. I got to take care of myself, and why would I go back? This is not about coercion, trying to tell people what to do. It's about taking care of yourself so that you can take care of one another. Jesus is helping us be guided by our hearts. That's what's most important. And I want to close with a pretty profound story from the Summer Olympics in Tokyo. Even without the spectators, I was still so enthralled by the competition and Simone Biles. I mean, the world-renowned American gymnast. She did something extraordinary. NBC had put millions of dollars into she's going to be the star of the Olympics. And all of a sudden, she was feeling jittery about her first competition. Simone had the wherewithal to trust herself, her heart. And she said, I need to step back from competition. I don't want to risk this somersaulting and hurting myself. Well, in the world we live in, we get some commentator from the UK, Piers Morgan, tweeting, there's nothing heroic or brave about you quitting just because you're not having fun. You've let down your teammates, your fans, your country. Oh my. I'm sure Jesus had some oh my's in his day of judgment around unclean food, clean food. Jesus says, that doesn't matter. What matters is in the heart. And sadly, the unspoken message today in society is, if you're just plain, if you're just ordinary, if you come in 36 at the Olympics, you don't really count. But the Judeo-Christian message is, you, all of us, are loved infinitely by the God who created us. Not because we get a gold medal, but because God loves us. Simone Biles, she knew that. And she came back to the competition. She didn't go home and sulk. She cheered her teammates on as she found a way to get at peace within herself. And she came back and did really well. Look at her, Andre de Grasse, and so many other Canadian competitors. Andre wins the bronze medal and he's celebrating like he got the gold. That was amazing. The Paralympics are on right now, and it is such a joy to watch their fierce competition and their love for sport and pushing themselves as far as they can. Well, these are lessons of life and faith, my friends. As we look to the coming weeks, we know things are going to be challenging. We know they're going to be different. If you go back to an in-person worship, it will not be the same. It will feel good in some ways, and I'm sure awkward in other ways. There will be many that will just stay at home, and rightly so, to be safe. But the beautiful gift is what we have now, whether it's the videotaping of these messages or perhaps live streaming on Sunday morning or whenever that service happens. My friends, the world is struggling right now, but we are not alone. We have a God that is guiding us with the heart. And I want to bless you with the words that the great American poet Maya Angelou comforts me often over and over again with these words. People will forget what you did. They will forget what you said. But they will never forget how you made them feel. What's that story in you where you've been loved, no matter what? You never forget it, do you? You never forget it. Thanks be to God.